Yes. Yeah, it is. But let's talk about it. Year after year, the Polar Express finds itself the subject of perhaps the most divisive Christmas debate, rivaled only by Die Hard is a Christmas movie, it's not, and if Home Alone's Kevin McAllister is just a psychopath, although most people seem to agree on that one. The Polar Express, based on the 1985 children's book of the same name, follows a young boy named Hero Boy, character names are hard, who is starting to think he may not believe in Christmas anymore, as he rides aboard a magical train to the North Pole, where he finds the magic of the season all over again. Putting aside the implications of a giant train appearing in the middle of a suburb and somehow not waking anyone except that one child up with its ridiculously loud whistle, and a yet unexplained ghost on the top of the train, the story is pretty straightforward. But of course, the debate isn't about the story, for the most part. It's about the fact that the main character looks like this. To understand, we should probably take a look back at the history of this story. When the original book was released in 1985, it did exceptionally well. It was awarded the Caldecott Medal, which denotes the, quote, most distinguished American picture book for children, and appeared on the New York Times bestseller list. In the first 4 years of it being published, it sold over 1 million copies. Also, it became a bedtime story staple for indie film actor Tom Hanks. He read the book to his kids and fell in love with it. So, in 2000, he bought the film rights from author Chris Van Allsburg under one condition: it couldn't be animated. This was because Van Allsburg believed that animation couldn't yet fully show the humanity of the characters. But director Robert Zemeckis had a problem with that. You couldn't tell the story of a magical train going to the North Pole in live action, so they compromised and turned to motion capture technology. While most people have seen the behind-the-scenes pictures of Thanos, motion capture looked very different at that time. It had technically been in use in the movies since the 1978 Lord of the Rings film, but it had never been used for a whole movie. In fact, The Polar Express was the first film to ever use motion capture for the whole film, and is still the longest motion capture performance. And while that's impressive, it also meant that the technology was nowhere near perfect. Some say it wasn't even usable yet. This led to a huge dichotomy between the purely animated shots of the train and the shots of the characters. Bear in mind that this was only 9 years after Toy Story's Terrifying Children, and those weren't using brand new motion capture technology. The team behind the Polar Express was breaking all new ground, trying to tell this story in a unique way. The only question was, would people like it? The answer was confusing. It opened at number 2 in the box office, behind The Incredibles, but dropped to 33% in its second weekend. It would also, however, have the highest IMAX gross of any film until Avatar in 2009. Reviews seemed to match this, with some calling it, quote, enchanting, beautiful, and brilliantly imagined, and others calling it, quote, at best disconcerting, and at worst, a wee bit horrifying. The positive reviews tended to, and still do, focus on the spirit of the movie, the somehow timeless Christmas magic it holds, while the negative reviews tended to fall into one of two camps: the story and the animation. But first, an aside about music. The music of the Polar Express seems to be pretty universally liked, with the score written by Alan Silvestri and songs featuring Josh Groban and Aerosmith's Steven Tyler. Very few reviews, positive or negative, talk about the music very much. People I know that like the movie and that don't all agree that the music is at least passively good, even if they don't love it. But I think it's better than most people give it credit for. See, the Polar Express is kind of a musical, so it has both sung-through songs and an instrumental score. The reason I say it's kind of a musical is because unlike a traditional movie musical, there's no big opening number. There's no songs at all until 10 minutes in. Musicals exist in a heightened form of reality, where singing and dancing isn't something that people do, it's just something that happens. And the Polar Express uses this status quo very intentionally. The normal world, where not believing in Santa and Christmas is normal, has no songs. But the magical world of the Polar Express and the North Pole do have songs. This makes the movie a musical until Hero Boy goes back home, when it stops again. They communicate the magic of the Christmas season not just by the songs, but also how they're placed in the film. That being said, the songs are also great. An elf version of Steven Tyler creates an absolute jam. Josh Groban's ballad about believing? Breathtaking. Songs about hot chocolate? They've got it. A small song about what Christmas means set against the Northern Lights? Perfection. Straight to finish. The score, on the other hand, is interesting. Despite there being a deluxe version of the soundtrack, where the score for a movie musical would normally go alongside the song numbers, the score is super hard to find. People have put it on YouTube, sure, but unless I'm missing something, you can't buy it anywhere, which is strange. But even though it's rare, it's really good. It's grand, majestic, and captures the magical holiday spirit combined with the action and adventure vibe that defines the movie. That's all. I just wanted to say how good it was. Back to reviews. Like I said, the people that don't like this movie generally take issue with either the story or the animation. I'm actually going to tackle the second one first, because, yeah, this is unsettling. I'm not entirely sure you won't murder me in my sleep. But, well, two things. One, this film revolutionized using motion capture in animation. Yes, other animated films had less creepy-looking characters than the Polar Express. But like I said, if you look at a decade earlier, this is exactly what non-mocapped CG characters look like. Of course it'll jump backwards in quality when you introduce a new technological element. Because, yes, we are squarely in the uncanny valley here. They look enough like humans that the differences are unsettling. However, if you look at any of the shots in this movie that don't have the characters in them, they're beautiful. They do exactly what the filmmakers wanted, to capture the wonder of those original book illustrations. You could pull so many frames in this movie. They're art, all on their own. Like this one, I'd frame this one. So I think that the admittedly off-looking characters don't detract from the stunning artistry that this film has. Even in the characters, they look super good for the film and technology. 2, this film is just a very well-made film. The cinematography of the lighting of each scene, dramatic and purposeful, and the unique camera angles, the sound design of the train, and how the filmmakers use the soundscape as its own song. I think it far outweighs any uncanny valley. And obviously, that's just my opinion. You can disagree with me, you'll just be wrong. As for the story, I do agree that it's not the most tightly written plot. Ryan George points this out in the Polar Express episode of its pitch meeting series.
Then this ticket flies up into the air for a little bit, and then next to some wolves, and then picked up by an eagle who brings it over a waterfall. Then a baby eagle tries to eat it and spits it up, and so then it becomes a snowball. Then it hits the front of the train, then a hobo's face, and then back into the train car and stuck to a vent. It's gonna take several minutes.
Okay, so it's back in the train now.
It's back in the train now.
So, okay, so what was that about?
Well, this is actually based on a kid's picture book that's like 30 pages long, so I gotta fill up the runtime somehow.
But again, I don't really think that matters. Sure, it wanders a little bit. The ending is predictable, the characters are one-noted, and the fact that everyone is played by Tom Hanks, oh yeah, he plays like 5 people in this movie, makes it seem like maybe it's a dream or something, until the fact that he opens a present the next day, that's the bill he got while he was on the train ride, makes it so it's not. But that doesn't really make it any less of a quality movie. Not every project needs to be a Die Hard, which is still not a Christmas movie, where every single line pays off and everything is tied up with a bow at the end. Okay, but not a Christmas bow, just a regular bow. The comfort movies that you may not be taught in screenwriting classes, but that make you feel things and take you on a journey just the same. These movies are just as good. And I think that The Polar Express is a perfect example of one of those movies. Not to mention all of the moments that were so clearly thought out. When Hero Boy sees Billy talking to the conductor, which helps him to see how dumb it would have been if he hadn't gotten on the train. The detail of everyone bouncing around whenever the train lurches forward. When Hero Boy pulls the emergency brake and then just keeps looking back and forth between the conductor and Hero Girl. The sweat on the engineer's face as he struggles. The legitimate tension of trying to stay on that rail in the North Pole. All of the iconic lines. What in the name of Mike? Lesson learned. It's been 5 to 12 for the last hour. It's nothing I need to know. And of course, caribou! All of the background details, like that know-it-all kid continuing to ramble in the background after hot chocolate, or how you can hear the kids on the train singing pretty much every song in the movie in the background in some scenes, often before it actually appears in earnest. They sing The Polar Express, Hot Chocolate, Spirit of the Season. This film is a work of love. It's a work of art. But all the rhetoric seems to boil down to uncanny valley. I wish that there were another way of telling this story. A way that avoided the pitfalls of early motion capture animation. But, of course, we run back into the same problems from before. Animation has been done, and a straight remake feels cheap. Live action would be super expensive and would probably lose some of that classic charm, so what do you do? Well, I propose a live action spectacular, like those live TV musicals, but tailored for the needs of this material. The Polar Express live, coming to HBO on Christmas Eve, and HBO Max the next day. You could have the authenticity of having actual people perform, the boundless limitations of animation, and the abstraction of theater. These live TV productions are perfectly situated in the middle of these mediums, and I think with a talented cast and a lot of rehearsals, it could be truly magical. You could have an animated establishing shot of the train climbing up a mountain, a shot atop the train's roof with one of those giant LED screens showing you the snow in their faces, and then a shot inside a real train car with live singing and dancing. It could capture the magic of the story in a new and unique way. Then again, I don't know, is the Polar Express even a bankable IP at this point? I hope so. I remember when I was in 3rd grade, my class held a movie day the week before Christmas break, and we watched the Polar Express. We all showed up to school in our pajamas, set up our chairs in 2 rows in front of the whiteboard so it was like we were on a train, and we drank hot chocolate. That powdered stuff that you mix with the water, it's either way too rich or almost flavorless. I remember the blanket of holiday cheer that this movie's been for me. I guess that's why I wanted to talk about it. This video isn't as unbiased or researched as most of them are, but this movie isn't like most Christmas movies. For most of the movie, there's no Christmas decorations. There's no Santa and his elves. You're on a train in the middle of nowhere, where the main color is blue. Even the North Pole, instead of being a magical workshop, is an industrial island. It's a very unique take on all this. But even though it doesn't have the traditional wrapping, pun absolutely intended, it's still a film full of moving songs, a warm and fuzzy message, and just an overall magical time. To me, it's every bit a classic, and it's a movie with characters that don't look like they want to kill you. It reminds you of what Christmas can bring, the hope, the joy, and the spirit of the season. Did you know there was a Polar Express video game? Weird.